Support for this podcast comes from the law firm of Davis Malm. Whether you're a developer, property owner, manager, or commercial tenant, their real estate attorneys know the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. WBUR senior reporter Allie Jarmanning. Welcome back to The Common.
Thanks for having me, Daryl.
Yeah, so Allie, you are here because you have been following the release of a new database last week from the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, also known as POST. They have compiled complaints against police officers in Massachusetts. The release came a year after its deadline, but it is being called a major milestone in the effort to increase transparency and accountability in Massachusetts' law enforcement system. However, there is still a lot of information missing from the record. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, right?
But Allie, before we dive into the database and what's missing and why, tell us, what is the Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission?
So POST was born as part of the 2020 police reform law that was passed here in Massachusetts, which a lot of other states have something like POST, but we had never had anything like that here in Massachusetts. And so what POST is supposed to do has two jobs. One is to certify police officers that they can work in Massachusetts, that they have the right training, that they have a clean enough disciplinary background, that they are eligible and in good standing to be able to serve in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The other thing that POST is supposed to do, and that's where this database comes in, is compile a list of all the complaints against officers in Massachusetts. And so that's what we're seeing here today.
Allie, what exactly is in the database?
So the database is active officers who have sustained complaints against them for non-minor infractions. Now, that's a lot of words, so I'll break that up. So sustained complaints means complaints that were found by internal affairs that it occurred. You know, the officer did wrongfully arrest that person. The officer was rude to someone. You know, there's different categories that police departments use. There's sustained complaints. That means, you know, it happened. There's unfounded, which means we couldn't figure out whether it happened or not. And then there's exonerated, where the department says, yeah, this didn't happen. The officer did not do this, what they're accused of. So this is only those sustained complaints, those like highest level that this happened. It also doesn't include minor violations. So things like, oh, you were late to work, or you had a uniform violation, or things like that. So it's only collecting major issues that actually were proven that they occurred. So it's a much smaller bucket than all the complaints that come in against a police officer.
Okay, got it. What other data is missing?
What we're finding at this point is that there are a lot of departments, individual officers missing from the data. So one example is Brookline. They sent their data of officers who had complaints against them to POST. And when POST published the data set this week, there are no Brookline officers listed at all.
Now, why is that?
Well, that's a good question. So I've been trying to find that out, and so far have not had a good answer. There's several other departments that show no officers listed at all. You know, Cambridge only has one officer listed. Shrewsbury has no officers listed. Like, there's definitely some questions about why are these departments missing? Was it just a technical error? Was it because the Post Commission decided, oh, none of these complaints are, you know, sustained or considered major enough to include? It's hard to know. So that's one of the things that we're trying to look at. I looked specifically this week at police chiefs who had been investigated and fired or resigned, you know, as part of a settlement or something like that. And I found that a lot of police officers in the last year who have been forced out were not showing up on the database. And so why is that?
These are the chiefs.
Yeah,
These are
yeah.
police
So
chiefs.
some examples are Brookline, where Ashley Gonzalez was, he only was in the position for about 2 months before he was investigated for sexual harassment in the department and then was fired. He's not listed. The former chief in Westminster, Massachusetts, he was investigated for creating a hostile work environment, including retaliating against a female sergeant who took pregnancy and family leave. He's not on the list. Southborough's police chief, same thing. So there's this question of, why aren't these chiefs showing up? Why aren't some people in these departments showing up? It's really kind of, I don't know. It's hard to know how much we can rely on it right now.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Did you kill Marlene Johnson?
I think you're one of the first people to have actually asked.
From WBUR and ZSP Media, this is Beyond All Repair, a new podcast about an unsolved murder that will leave you questioning everything.
Somebody should be in jail for murdering my sister.
A woman who's never been believed.
As long as they think I have done this, then they're not looking for who actually did this.
And that's what makes it a cold case.
No, it's a botched case.
And a search for the truth, once and for all.
Wow, it just gets more interesting.
Beyond All Repair. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Be careful. You're digging in a place that's been very peaceful for a while.
Do it anyway. Dig.
And we're back with Allie. What does Post have to say about this missing information?
Yeah, so I talked to Post's executive director, Enrique Zuniga, and he acknowledged that there definitely were missing departments, missing officers in the data, at least 3 whole departments, Brookline, Everett, and Cambridge, and also an unknown number of individual officers that should be there. They've received, as of last week, about couple dozen correction requests from different people and entities. And he said when it came to publishing the list, the commission was really trying to balance transparency with accuracy.
If we were in the private sector, we might have beta tested this whole project. We might have sent it to the chiefs to say, hey, validate it for us. This is what we're about. But we could not do that.
And I asked him, is this data reliable? Is this something people can use? And he said, yes, of course, but with the caveat that, there's going to be more information coming and it's going to be updated.
With this database being some sort of milestone for transparency and accountability, as it is right now, do you think it can achieve that?
Good question. I think that this is, and I've spoken to some folks who say this is a good start. This is a tool that we have to work toward police accountability and transparency in our state, but we can't really be satisfied with just, they put out this database and we're fine with that. And so, one of the people I spoke to that spoke about that was Sophia Hall. She's a civil rights lawyer with Lawyers for Civil Rights. And she said, kind of this is a good start, but it's just one tool in the whole police reform toolbox.
There's so many pieces of this story that are left untold. It's almost like all you're getting in some ways from the database is the abstract, or a summary, but we're missing all the pages of the novel.
And so I think, what she's saying there is we can't look at this and say, if you live in Brookline, none of my police officers show up here, everything must be fine. And I think for a lot of people, there's frustration that this data set only includes sustained complaints and doesn't include minor issues, because it's a high bar sometimes to get to a sustained complaint.
Yeah.
An officer can have a ton of complaints against them and very few are sustained. And I think there's two ways to look at that. One, that officers have a very difficult job where they interact with the public a lot, and that, there are going to be conflicts and people are going to complain, and there are some complaints that are completely unfounded or that aren't true. And so, of course they shouldn't be sustained. But there also are cases where there are a number of complaints that maybe they can't be sustained, but they're not necessarily not true. So it's just that the department couldn't say with certainty that this happened and that the officer violated whatever they violated.
Allie, there is so many more questions I have for you, but I guess at this point, I'm just going to ask you, as you continue to go through the data, grapple with this story, what questions will you be asking as you continue to follow this?
I really want to see, how is this made more reliable than it is right now? Because it's hard to know what's not there. And so, I have a lot of questions about how this is going to be made into something really useful and reliable. Like, how much can a reporter rely on this right now? How much can another department? How much can a regular citizen look at this and feel like they have a real sense of what's going on in Massachusetts? Or, I don't think Post or anybody who drafted this law wants this to just be like a checkbox. So we've thrown up a spreadsheet and so like everything is fine. I talked to Will Brownsberger. He's the state senator who helped to negotiate the police reform bill that formed Post. And when I talked to him before the data was released, when there was already going to be, there's some concerns about what wouldn't be there in terms of, unsustained complaints and minor violations and everything. And he said, basically, be patient, that this is not the end of this whole process, that this is only the beginning.
I view the Post Commission as sort of a 50 to 100 kind of year institution. And I think, we're building a new framework, and I think we need to let that framework accumulate weight and reputation over time.
So yeah, he's saying basically this is not a one and done. And so we're going to have to follow this as it goes and make sure that this commission and this data set is useful going forward.
Got it. Well, Allie, thank you so much for your reporting. I see that you're working hard on getting some answers here, so thank you for that. And thank you for taking some time to come through to the Common. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's WBUR senior reporter Allie Jarmanning. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. Please, wherever you listen to podcasts, especially Apple or Spotify, rate and review us. Let us know how you're liking the show. We would really, really appreciate it. And if you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram at WBUR The Common, or send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I will talk to you tomorrow.